Welcome to the Golden State Media Concepts Sex Podcast, a show that examines all aspects of sexuality, from physical to emotional to spiritual. Join our hosts as they discuss age-old questions, common misconceptions, and the latest topics surrounding sex. They'll tackle topics about sexuality from the complicated to the hilarious and everything in between. GSMC Sex Podcast is your show for all of your questions about sex, even some you might not have thought of yet.
Thank you for listening to the GSMC Sex Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Gaelika Brown. Now let me jump into my little monologue, my little spiel before we get into talking about sex. So, as I always say, I am not a sex expert. I love me some Dr. Ruth though, but I am not Dr. Ruth. However, I have spent some time on this earth and have experienced some things and have witnessed some things. And because I am an excellent listener, I have heard some things. I'm a student of human behavior and love to learn. I love to research topics and present what I have learned, which is what I do on this podcast. And of course, I'm going to give my 2 cents about the matter. So with that being said, let's talk about sex. Let's talk about sex, baby. Let's talk about you and me. All right, so Netflix is the main platform I consume television and movies on. Late night, some weeks back, I was searching through what's new and saw a picture of Gwyneth Paltrow. That's my girl, Shakespeare in Love, so I'm like, what'd it do? And it said The Goop Lab with Gwyneth Paltrow. Now, I know of her lifestyle brand, but never visited her site or read anything from it. So I thought I would check it out. Now, I came across an episode entitled The Pleasure Is Ours. The description said, going from vulvas to true vulnerability, Gwyneth and the team plunge into the topic of women's pleasure, guided by sex educator Betty Dodson. I mean, after that description, I had to press play and check it out. Honestly, the episode made me feel a little uncomfortable. The women featured in the episode openly showed all they goods. I have never seen so many vulvas in my life, all different kinds, just a plethora of vulvas. I mean, they had no shame, which, hey, more power to you, but, I mean, I'm all for looking at your stuff in the mirror and and knowing what you're working with, but do we need to do it as a group activity? For me, no. But yeah, so it was groups of women looking in the mirror at their vulva and encouraging one another. Then there is this little old, like, butch-looking lady with a smoker's voice guiding them through exercises. Who is this lady, and why is she so widely respected? Well, that lady is Betty Dodson, artist, author, and PhD sexologist. She has been one of the principal voices for women's sexual pleasure and health for over 4 decades. Her first book, Liberating Masturbation, a Medication of Self-Love, written in 1974, became a feminist classic. Sex for One, 1987, sold over 1 million copies and is an international best-selling book. She is known for her rock and roll orgasm technique, but she has a site titled DodsonandRoss.com with Carlin Ross, lawyer turned sex therapist, that promotes the Betty Dodson method of self-love and feminist-based sex education. They host biannual body sex workshops to teach women how to overcome negative body images and pleasure anxiety. Now, over the years, my talks with friends about masturbation have been a mixed bag. Some masturbate, but have never experienced or experimented with toys. Some have a pleasure box full of toys, and few have never masturbated at all. Because of that mixed bag, I thought it would be cool to focus this episode on the Betty Dodson method. What does Betty have to say about women knowing and exploring their body? I would like to first begin with a quote she once said. I would agree with the Orthodox Jews on this one point. Men can't do anything but have sexual intercourse with their wives, while she can do anything like masturbate, use vibrators, dildos, porn, anything at all. It is a reverse double standard in a way. The female sex drive far exceeds that of a male, but remains one of the best kept secrets thanks to our sexual double standard. She has since modified that statement to, I would change my words to clarify that both sexes benefit from masturbation. However, the statement, the female sex drive far exceeds that of the male, is quite accurate. Today, I changed the term sex drive to sexual appetite, or better yet, sexual capabilities. Once she has overcome sex negative message all women get within our Judeo-Christian nation that fosters fear, ignorance, and sexual repression. Now, I don't necessarily agree with sex negative message from the Judeo-Christian nation comment and her views on the Bible that I'm not going to discuss. The Bible is all for sex. It's just within the context of marriage. But that is a whole nother episode. But the comment about both sexes benefiting from masturbation and the sexual capabilities of a woman, I get down with. Now, I don't necessarily think that it is masturbation that both benefit from, but rather a woman knowing her body and what gets her off that they both benefit from. Now, of course, spending time pleasuring yourself will help one understand themselves, but it doesn't mean that that can't be accomplished through partner sex only. Some may be capable of figuring out how to get off based off of past sexual experiences and practice, but that's just my 2 cents, and I ain't no expert. Now, the site has blogs written by Betty and other women. One blog by Katrina Maria entitled, When Women Are Disconnected from Themselves, They Have Disconnected Partner Sex. She writes, when women are connected to themselves, they have connected partner sex. Women who turn themselves on regularly have a trusting and reliable relationship with themselves, their intuition, and what is right for them. So when they choose to have partner sex, they are clear on what is their stuff and what is the other person's. They are clear on what they want and what they don't need. They have a bounty themselves, and they have come to share the overflow. When women are out of touch with the deep depth of sexual energy that often runs below the surface of busy everyday life, they forget the river is even there. Desires seem to go missing. Then when connecting with the partner, whether out of obligation or good timing or coaxing or what have you, the current is already moving too fast. You forget how much you have wanted, and no partner can satiate this need. To listen to self, to connect to self, to give yourself the best time, to make art with your own body, completely unattached to how it looks as a whole, staying in the moment. Does this sound foreign? It can be yours. Work on your sex for one, and it will overflow into the hottest, most present, beautiful sex for two when the time is right. Almost everything is being sold to us these days. Some in obvious ways, some in subtle ways. Instagram feed. Yet nowhere do I see masturbation being promoted. I'm talking next level masturbation, not rubbing one out, not jerking off. I'm talking about making fucking art with your glorious body, enjoying the sensation and the sensuality of being in a body with body parts made just for pleasure. It's kind of a miracle. It's free. It's healing. It's nurturing. It's good for you. It's good for your reproductive health, for mental health, your stress levels, and it's fucking free. Did I mention that? You also don't need anything else or to go anywhere. It's the best. We need to talk about this more. So here it is. If you're reading this, consider this your reminder to go masturbate. Become your greatest lover. You will benefit. The world will benefit. Can you imagine if the whole world was having mind-blowing sex with themselves? Yo, just like that. I ain't got no 2 cents on that. Only one word. Agree. Okay, I lied. Maybe I do have more to say. There should be no shame when it comes to masturbation, especially for women. Men have no shame in talking about jerking off. It's a given, and they are expected to rub one out and ejaculate before they even start their day. But they can get theirs and enjoy the health benefits and mood-altering benefits of coming, and we can't? Why? They can explore their bodies and know whether or not long strokes or shorthand strokes get them to the point of ejaculation, while we have no idea what gets us off, all because of shame? Why? Since Betty did mention the Bible in a negative way in her blog, even though I didn't read those comments, you can check them out yourself if you want. I will say this about the Bible. Adam and Eve walked around butt-ass naked with no shame until they ate the fruit and sin was introduced to the garden. Only then did they hide in shame and cover themselves up to hide from God. God constructed every part of their body. He knew every part of their body. There was nothing for them to be ashamed about. God didn't introduce shame to them. Sin, by way of the serpent, did. So let's take a break and return with From Trauma to Orgasms.
Still on the search of that one true love? On the limbo in this crazy world of dating, marriage, relationships? Well, listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Relationship Podcast, your one-stop podcast for everything about relationships.
Welcome back to the GSMC Sex Podcast. I'm your host, Gaelika Brown. I've been going over my findings on the Dodson and Ross site. This next article by Carlin Ross is entitled From Trauma to Orgasms. Carlin writes, at best, we've been objectified, demeaned, shamed, guilted, and manipulated into believing that we don't deserve pleasure on our own terms. At worst, we've been groped, assaulted, raped, and blamed for male lust. Betty and I have traveled the globe, and there isn't a society or culture where women have true sexual equality. The clitoris is ignored. The female model of sexual response isn't even part of the discussion. Procreate sex reigns supreme. Female chastity and male dominance are the norm, and sadly, the rape culture persists. What this means is that we all have to work through past trauma to get to pleasure. And I believe that this is the first step in the healing process. Understanding that you're not alone and acknowledging your truth. It's not your fault. When we stop blaming ourselves, we can assign blame to our true abusers, call them out, and move forward with our lives. You're not damaged goods. Elizabeth Smart was kidnapped from her bedroom when she was 14 years old. She was held captive a few miles from her family home, raped repeatedly, and didn't try to run away when she had the chance because she believed she was damaged goods. In her absence-only sex ed class, her teacher had described how girls who had sex before marriage were like chewed up pieces of gum that no one wanted. Today, Elizabeth is married with a family and tours the country lecturing against abstinence-only sex ed curriculum and the damaging effects it has on young girls. The Elizabeth Smart story is so close to me. We are similar in age. She grew up a couple hours from me. I remember when she went missing. I mean, she was a major reason to me being a scary kid and thinking about fight plans and exit strategies if I were ever kidnapped. Like, for real. I would think about, if I'm in a car, if I'm in the back of the trunk, how would I get out? If they grab me, I would kick them in the balls and then run here. I would scream there. Like, literally, always on the lookout. Like, stranger danger was, like, in my head. White van or any kind of creepy van, stranger danger. Like, it was real. And I still think that way to this day. But I remember the impact I felt when she was found, and it's heartbreaking to think that she never ran because she thought she was damaged goods. I've always considered myself strong-willed and a fighter who would run. But hearing her story makes me wonder, Would I have ran? I'm sure we received the same sex ed teachings, being that we are similar in age and went to school in the same state. So with abstinence-only sex ed curriculum, would it have affected my strong-willed psyche? Hopefully, I will never know. But I do believe it shouldn't be solely on the shoulders of institutions to educate kids on sex. Parents need to play a part too. And teaching abstinence only is not realistic for the majority of the world. Telling someone they shouldn't do something is almost a surefire way to get them to do it. And people have to learn life lessons on their own through exploring. What if we educated and equipped kids and teens with sexual knowledge that they will benefit from as adults instead of giving them an unrealistic command? Now back to the article on trauma and sex. When we've experienced pain, it's hard to forget. Certain images or scenarios in films would trigger me. I like kissing, but when things went further, I either froze or jumped right into to prove that I wasn't fucked up. In the end, partner sex left me feeling numb. Betty and I hear this a lot from women writing into the site. After a sexual assault or sexless marriage, women just don't feel any pleasure anymore. Disassociating from our bodies and our orgasm is a coping mechanism. Sometimes when our body leads, our mind and heart follow. This is why conscious masturbation is critical to accepting pleasure into our lives. I didn't feel like touching my body. I didn't feel like having an orgasm, but I pushed myself to do it 1 to 2 times a week. I picked up the magic wand, a small dildo, and some natural oil lubricant. I would lie on my back and lube up my clitoris. When I had any negative thought, I would imagine pulling that thought out of my head and placing it in a box and closing the lid. It took about a year, but eventually I could touch myself without feeling any guilt or shame. Orgasm wasn't my goal. My goal was to feel the good feelings. That's something Betty Dodson says. Orgasm is grounding, giving birth, living in a sexless marriage, walking around with a vagina. We experience trauma every day. The beautiful thing about being a woman is that we have the keys to happiness and healing right between our legs. The clitoris. We have an organ that exists solely for pleasure, and at any moment, we can lube up our fingers, reach down, and stimulate ourselves to orgasm. God, if men had clits, there would be no war. It feels like the tide is turning, that things are going to open up for women in new ways. I hope that we will let orgasm be our guide and unleash the true potential of womankind. Connecting to my sexual power with regular orgasms heals everyone around me. I mean, I don't know about me healing the world 1 orgasm at a time. But I do know that mood-wise, I am a better person to be around if I'm getting mine. So those around me benefit from that. But am I healing them? No. Nor do I think I am that powerful to heal others. I will leave that to God. Now, we can't talk about Betty Dodson without talking about her rock and roll orgasm technique. So when we return, we will break down that method.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome back to the GSMC Sex Podcast. I'm your host, Gaelika Brown. Now, I've mentioned in past episodes that I lost my virginity in college at 19 years old. In the beginning, I was just being penetrated. I had no idea how to receive pleasure, what it felt like, or how to orgasm. So although I was having sex, I really didn't understand the big whoop-de-doo people talked about on TV. I had a boyfriend during sex ask me if I had ever orgasmed. He was the first guy to be concerned about my pleasure during the deed. When I told him no, he said that that's because you have to concentrate. What? Concentrate and focus on coming? That was a small game changer. I've also mentioned that I played softball in college, and we had a bus for away games with TVs in it. Before we would leave town, our bus would pull up to a Blockbuster. Yes, Blockbuster, and not Redbox. Red what? There was no such thing. And my coach would run in and rent hella movies. One movie we watched was the 1991 movie Sleeping with the Enemy with Julia Roberts. Now, I remember watching a sex scene, and our trainer, who I never thought as a sexual being at all, yelled out at the TV, "You gotta move them hips, girl!" Now, granted, Julia Roberts was sleeping with the enemy, so there was no pleasure she was seeking. But I remember thinking, oh, that's what I have to do during sex? Move my hips? Now, Sex and the City was my show at that time. And I remember a scene where they were doing Kegel exercise. I'm doing mine right now. I'm not really. That was just a line from the show. And them talking about the importance of breathing while doing this. Now, over time, I combined the hodgepodge of info I overheard and learned from TV into my sexual life. And damn, that was for sure a game changer for me and my partners, but mainly for me. Now, reading about Betty's rock and roll technique, I discovered my life experiences taught me something she wrote and revolutionized in the 70s. So let's start with the prologue to her technique. Basically, you're laying on your back with your legs bent, hip distance apart. Rock your pelvis forward towards your belly button and squeeze your PC, that's your pelvic muscle. Then relax your PC muscle as you roll your pelvis back to the ground. Breathe in while you rock your pelvis forward and squeeze your pelvis muscle. Then exhale as you release your PC muscle and your pelvis back to the ground. It's a small, subtle movement. You rock, squeeze, relax, release, and repeat. Then you add clitoral stimulation and vaginal penetration for total vulva happiness. Don't be disappointed if it takes some time to learn the steps. Trust me, it's worth it. And if you can't visualize this, that Netflix episode on the Goop, or in that Goop series, actually shows it. That's why I'm like, they went all out. They showed you everything. So if you need to see it for yourself, go ahead and check it out. I believe it's towards the end of the episode. Now here's the actual technique. So the pelvic floor muscle. Consciously relax your vaginal muscles while taking several deep breaths. Then very slowly press your middle finger inside your vagina. Once inside, circle your finger, filling the contours of your vaginal barrel. Of your vaginal barrel. Take a deep breath and relax all the surrounding muscles and focus primarily on the muscles that stop the flow of urine. Now squeeze and release this muscle on your finger. You will feel your vagina gripping your finger softly or firmly depending on the strength of your PC. I do not know how you actually pronounce that word. Pubococcyges? Pubococcyges. Sounds like I wanted to sing the Mickey Mouse Club. I don't know why I wanted to go into the whole Mickey Mouse Club beat. But yeah, so it says you will feel your vagina gripping your finger softly or firmly, depending on the strength of your PC, that word, muscle. So take your finger away and watch your entire genital area move from your clitoris to your anus when you contract the muscle by lifting up and squeezing. Do not bear down. Lift and release. Lift and release. Be sure to check out how to do Kegel exercises under Betty's vaginal barbell. So yeah, if you're on a website, click on that link. Breathing. Next, lie down on your bed, a futon or blanket on the floor. Make sure you are comfortable and warm. Place a pillow under your head. Your feet are on the floor with your knees bent and your legs at a comfortable angle. Take a series of deep breaths, exhaling with an audible sigh. Send loving thoughts to your body. During your masturbation session, it's a good idea to be able to hear yourself breathing out loud. Getting oxygen into the bloodstream is essential for clitoral enjoyment. Inhale through your nose and exhale through your mouth. If your nose is stopped up, do both in and out. Breathe with your mouth. Most women tend to hold their breath during sexual arousal, so make sure you breathe. Don't hold your breath, girl. Pelvic rocking. Avoid tensing up and holding your body rigid. Move your pelvis like Elvis. Roll your hips. Do a little dance lying down. Use all the movements that feel good. Loosen up that pussy, girl. No. Loosen up and stretch. Smile as your hips rock forward and back. The muscles in your body flex and relax similar to an athlete in motion. Take a minute and dance to the music of your choice with rhythmic pelvic thrusting along with deep breathing and sound of pleasure. Remember, sex is about having fun and feeling good. During your entire masturbation session, a gentle rocking motion can become perpetual motion. Rest if you get tired. Water break. Penetration with PC muscle. Now that you are in touch with your PC muscle, you are ready to do slow penetration. If you are new to vaginal penetration, begin with your finger. Then use this is where it gets a little weird. I mean, I'm all about my fruits and veggies, but only for eating purposes. I prefer to just actually buy products that do this for me. But she says, then use a peeled carrot or zucchini, gradually making them bigger. Just be aware that squeezing your vagina muscles will tend to push the veggie dildo out, so hold it with one hand. I mean, I guess if you want to be economical, use what you got in your fridge and not buy a vibrator that costs X amount of dollars. Sure, go to the farmer's market. Go to your garden, girl. Pick you some veggies, peel them bad boys, and stick it in you. I'm sorry. Maybe that's old school. She's been doing this and writing about this since the 70s, so maybe like vibrators weren't that accessible then. I don't know, maybe I'm being a little too insensitive about this. But definitely do not use one of them little small carrots, little baby carrots. You might get lost up in there. That would be an interesting hospital visit. I got a baby carriage shoved inside of me. But okay, let's get back to this whole zucchini talk. Okay, if you have Betty's barbell, so she has her own little barbell that you can purchase online. It sounds crazy. Barbell sounds like some like heavy, monstrous like object, but it really isn't. But penetration virgins or postmenopausal women unaccustomed to vaginal penetration will place the smaller ball of the barbell just at the vaginal opening inside the vestibule. Not vegetable, but vestibule. As you begin to squeeze and release the PC muscle, observe the sensation. Penetrate your vagina very slowly, going an inch at a time while pausing to grip and release the dildo or barbell with your muscle. Once the barbell is inserted, it stays in place, leaving both hands free. Hands free, hey! A little Bluetooth, got it. Bluetooth sensation. Bluetooth action going. Okay, your veggie dildo will get pushed out as you squeeze the muscle. So hold it in place. Grip that veggie, girl. Grip that veggie. Clitoral stimulation. With the barbell in place, add clitoral stimulation first with your oiled finger. Release all expectations of what you should be feeling. Just observe what is happening without any judgments. Stay with the manual as long as it feels good. When you desire more clitoral sensation, add a battery vibrator. Stay with this for as long as it feels good. For women using an electric vibrator, begin with the switch on low. It's okay to experiment with high later on, but the low setting will allow you to take time and enjoy all your pleasurable sensations. Keep a light touch. The whole point of self-loving is to train your body to tolerate higher levels of sexual pleasure that last longer than a few moments. I use Betty's rock and roll technique during masturbation and partner sex. You can't just lie there and expect orgasms to fall down from heaven. At first, it felt like it was too much to think about, but eventually, with enough practice, it became second nature. I promise, if you use the rock and roll technique in your masturbation practice, you'll train your body to orgasm during partner sex. Just don't forget to do your own clitoral stimulation. So there you have it. Betty Dodson has equipped women all over the world to experience a true orgasm. And on that note, I will end with my favorite quote from Betty. You can't just lie there and expect orgasms to fall down from heaven. I definitely appreciate your time. Thank you for listening to the GSMC Sex Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. Until next time, I'm Gaelika Brown.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sex Podcast, part of the GSMC Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcasts on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type in GSMC to find all of our shows from the GSMC Podcast Network. From sex and relationships to health and wellness, life and happiness, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's episode of the Golden State Media Concepts Sex Podcast.